Welcome to the Ephesiology Podcast in our series, Christ in Your Context, exploring why Jesus is good news where you are. Today we are with Michael, our resident ephesiologist. I'm Andrew Johnson in Houston, Texas, and we are thrilled, very, very happy to be joined by Chris Sinusol. Now, Chris has been married to Kelly for 22 years. They've got 4 kiddos, and about 14 years ago, they planted a Soma church in Victoria, British Columbia, called West Village Church. And at the beginning of 2025, for those looking at the calendar, that is 2 months ago, West Village sent Chris and Kelly to a new part of Victoria to plant again. Now, Chris serves in various regional roles within the Soma family of churches, and he loves serving the broader church community to foster environments where holistic missional disciples are being made. Chris, thank you so much for being on the Ephesiology Podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, it's always fun to have pastors who are missionally minded and out in the communities, engaging the community. So we're excited, Chris, that you're here.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Okay, so I read your bio. I think I did it justice.
Yeah.
But what are some things that people who know you would say these are some of the 3 big things about Chris?
Yeah. So three big things, I guess. Number one would definitely, maybe even overshadow the other 2 completely. Is that I'm a basketball junkie, and in particular, like high school hoops. I have fallen in love with high school basketball. I love the NBA. It's actually potentially my least favorite of all forms of basketball, unless the Toronto Raptors are super relevant. And then
which they aren't. So
which they aren't and won't be for quite some time. So, but yeah, high school and then college basketball. So I've been a high school basketball coach for the last almost decade at a local high school here, and helped build it's a long story, probably deserves its own podcast, maybe not a theology one, but I got involved when my youngest son, who's now 21, was in grade 9. So he was a freshman in high school, and the school was not good at any sports. And I knew I was going to be there for quite some time. So I just decided I wanted to serve the school, and so help build a basketball program. And we are slated to win our 2nd straight provincial title, which would be the equivalent of a state championship.
Yeah.
Which would put us in historic precedent. So I've invested quite a bit of time and thought and energy, both physically, but also emotionally and spiritually, into high school hoops. So that's a huge one for me. I love to go to the gym. I actually just got back from the gym not that long ago, about 20 minutes ago. Took a quick shower, jumped on the podcast. So I love to go to the gym. And then I just love, there's a few things. I like to read. I enjoy people in general. We have a ton of people in our home. If you hear thumping around upstairs, it's because there's people in my house right now. Moms are here playing with their kids and my wife. But I love being a dad. I really do enjoy fathering my children, especially as they're getting a little bit older. My oldest is 21, my youngest is 16, and then we have a 20 and a 17-year-old wedged in there, 20-year-old and 17-year-old. And I just enjoy, I've just enjoyed, being a dad and spending time with them and nurturing them. So
Neat.
Yeah.
That's cool.
This is so fun. So Chris, for those who haven't looked at a map in a minute or missed it, so Victoria, British Columbia, you hail from Canada.
Yep.
And at the time of recording, the Raptors play the Pacers tonight. So
didn't even know that.
Today we are frenemies.
Okay.
But what are some unique things about your context that people who are outside of either Victoria, outside of British Columbia, or even outside of Canada, they might not know what life looks like on the ground?
Yeah. So I'm kind of operating on the premise, because I'm talking to 2 Americans, that the majority of your audience is kind of south of the 49th parallel, the border. So what I've discovered is a lot of people I talk to don't even know where Victoria is. So if you were to look at a map of Canada, it's a big landmass, obviously, and you were to go as far left as you could possibly go, you get to the edge. That would be kind of the edge of British Columbia. That's Vancouver, more or less. And then if you keep going, there's a small, not so small island off the coast called Vancouver Island. And on the southern tip of Vancouver Island, there is a city, which is the provincial capital, or this, again, contextually be the state capital, called Victoria. Now, if you're to, again, look at that map, Victoria is actually below the 49th parallel. Like we're actually, I can't remember the exact Washington city that we're parallel to. I think it might be Kirkland, Washington.
Yeah.
But that might not be 100% accurate, but we're below the border. So there is like, we are very isolated, but again, what is very unique about the Canadian context is how post-Christian we are. We have much more in common spiritually with Europe than we do with the Americans. So there is a real sense in which church attendance, church relevance is like absolutely falling off the map. So Victoria is according to the most recent, I think it was 2021 census data, we are known as the second most secular city in all of Canada. And so they base that on people's religious affiliation. So none is the largest religious category in Canada. It's massive on the West Coast. Like by a landslide. So Victoria, which is on Vancouver Island, number 2, Nanaimo, which is the city 90 minutes north of us. So it's on the island still, but just up is number 1, the most secular city. And then the number 3 most secular city in Canada is Vancouver, which is just on the mainland. So about a 90-minute ferry ride from us. So basically like it is, yeah, like I think church statistics in our city, last time I checked, were in the neighborhood. And this encompasses, I shouldn't say church, this encompasses all religious gatherings. So not just evangelical Christian churches. And I think the number, it's somewhere between 4 and 6% would be in some form of religious gathering with some regular rhythm.
Across religions as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So Chris, so when you say secular and this category of the nuns, does that mean that people aren't interested at all in spiritual things? They're like completely secular, no interest in any sort of astrology or the horoscope or things like these?
Something beyond naturalism.
Yeah, no, I'd say like there was probably an epoch of time where that might have been true, at least in like the, maybe not boots on the ground, but in the narrative sense. I think there was like a bit of a reactionary response to the Christian faith. But what I'm now seeing as I'm engaging with people is even like, I have lots of friends that are not followers of Jesus. And those who were even like, I would have described them as like hard atheists, are not in that camp anymore. There's a much more openness to some form of supernatural. And so the neighborhood I'm in particular right now, extremely secular, no churches, very few Christians, but a lot of spirituality, like a ton. And I mean, it's a blend, right? It's a synchronized spirituality with sort of a Western Canadian mindset. So like yoga is like up and to the right in terms of like people's practice. And it's not just a physical exercise for people. It is a practice of mindfulness. But there is also like just an openness to like what people would describe as like a consciousness or the effects of the universe or like some sort of like, it's sort of a bit of a word salad. So it's hard to put handles on it, but like an Eastern mystic kind of expression of religion that has been kind of borrowed from like just the buffet of options and ideas that people kind of like and prefer. And so I don't meet too many people that, think, like we're a cosmic accident, we're going to die and be worm food. And then there's going to be the heat death of the universe and nothing really matters. Sort of like a Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens atheism. Like I don't encounter those conversations very often at all. But there is, so it's not that it is an openness to spirituality, but it's very much like choose your own adventure. Esoteric,
new age-ish kind of.
Yep. Absolutely.
Deal. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So like in my neighborhood, like where we live, we've been here for, since December 15th. So like 9 weeks, something like that. And, whatever church buildings existed are now either performing arts theaters, they've been converted to those, or houses, or new age spiritual centers. Like they are like actually, like there's one just around the corner that is, I don't know if the Apostle Paul would probably call it a satanic church, but like they're into tarot cards and clairvoyance, and they have services on Sunday and youth group on Wednesday. Like actually, like I'm not
gosh,
that's not just rhetoric. Like if you go on the website, they have that. This coming Sunday, I'm actually going to go to a gathering at the Victoria Truth Center, which used to be a church building, and now it's a spiritual truth center. Like, basically the idea is anyone is welcome. Like we just want to practice mindfulness and happiness and love and harmony and all those things. And so I'm going to go check out that. They have a 10:30 a.m. service with a reverend. I'm really curious what that's going to be like, but so there's that. That's all over our neighborhood. Yeah.
Well, that's super fascinating. So secular in the sense of the decline of how we understand Western Christianity, but at the same time, the emergence and growth of these kind of esoteric New Age types of mindfulness and so forth, it sounds like.
Yeah. And I think, not to get too far into the weeds here, I'm not sure if this is helpful. You can move us along if it's not, but.
We love the weeds. Just go on.
Okay. So, I'm also like in an urban village right now, and I came out of the suburbs. So it's a very different feel here than it was in the suburbs. But there's also like, and this would come with the extreme liberal and progressive nature of like the political climate of our culture. And this is probably a slightly uniquely Canadian thing. Like there's a real, well, I guess I hear about this coming out of the States as well, like a real, like an allergic reaction to anything that reeks of colonialism. So anything like here, the blight on the Canadian history is our treatment of Indigenous people, First Nations people. And so like white European colonizers, Christian colonizers came in, took over, tried to erase culture. Like at least that's the narrative. And I realize there's some nuance to that story, but there is a pushback against anything that kind of has that attachment. And so I think there is a sense that like, the church is not just like, there is an apathy to it for sure. But I also think there's like, it's not a hostility towards the church per se, but there is a sense in which like church as people understand it is actually bad news.
Yeah.
And, and I don't know, no offense to you guys, not to throw shade your way, but I don't know that the last few election cycles have done us Canadian Christians any favors in our context. And so like there is a real, like, as I walk my neighborhood, the question that I'm the most concerned about, I'm not afraid to have spiritual conversations. The question that I'm most concerned about is, what do I do for a living? Because I feel like my answer to that question could make or break my future relationship with people. So it used to be that if you were a pastor, it was, it was a position of respect, right? Like, oh, you're a pastor.
Yeah.
Member of the community, serve the community, all those things. Then it was, okay, like that's interesting. I don't really understand it. Now it's like, oh, you might actually be dangerous. Like you might actually be. So my hope is that people find out that, we're nice before they find out what I do for a job. Although I don't tell people I'm a pastor, I've come up with a new way of articulating that. But yeah, so that is just the climate. Like that's just the climate we're in, and it creates. Well, this is how I think about it. It creates a lot of challenges, but also creates a lot of opportunities. Like it forces innovation, and it forces, like contextualization. Like you have to really think through it's one thing to start a church service and have people at it. It's another thing, like, how are you going to actually make disciples in this context? And like, we have to be asking that question, because that's the climate we're in. Like that's the social climate, and that's where we've been planted. And so how do we plant the gospel here and see it take root? And it might require reimagining, not function, but reimagining form of how we've done things in the past. So.
Wow. Yeah. Cool. Well, get into that a little bit, Chris. What is that looking like in your context when you talk about reimagining the form?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a dangerous question for me because I'll be honest, like, I don't know right now. So,
I actually think that's a great answer, but
okay.
please go on. But
Yeah.
no, because you just said you've been there for 8 weeks,
Yeah.
right? And going from suburban to more urban,
Hmm.
moving into a new town, like I, I hope you don't have all the answers yet,
Yeah.
because whatever you think you know right now might be undone in
Right.
the next month after a few conversations, right? Like there's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of learning.
Yeah. So my wife and I were pretty committed. It's a long story how we ended up in this neighborhood, but once this neighborhood became where we are, where we're going to be planted, we became pretty committed to the idea that we didn't want to move down here with uh, answers to questions that we weren't even sure were being asked yet.
Mm,
That makes sense. So
yeah.
we didn't want to come down here with a backpack of uh, you know like backpack that we're just gonna like,
Scripts.
yeah, we're just
Yeah.
gonna unpack this in the neighborhood. And like, because there is I've been in church plant world now for like close to 20 years, and there is like a formula to how we plant churches, and it's very like pragmatic and somewhat predictable. And we have just said like that is not how we want to approach this neighborhood, because we don't think that that script is going to actually be good news for our neighbors. And we don't want to presuppose even that, but I'm just assuming based on the fact that everywhere that expression of church existed in this neighborhood no longer exists, right? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
literally a massive church building 50 steps from my house that is now called the Belfry Theater. It used to be Emmanuel Baptist. I've been studying the history of the neighborhood over the last number of weeks, and there's a park 2 blocks over called Steveston Park that was named after one of the beloved pastors of that church. And now that church doesn't exist. So something has shifted. Something has
Wow.
changed where this church went from the epicenter of this community to now, there's nothing here anymore. And so we are coming in going like we actually want to learn, we want to listen, we want to pay attention, we want to get to know our neighbors, listen to their stories. Like I said, I'm studying the history of this neighborhood so we can understand the story of our neighborhood. And so yeah, like to say this is what it looks like, I'm not sure I have that answer. I mean, I have ideas in my mind of what I think it could look like. But I actually don't know yet, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, I'm going to say something I probably have never said on this podcast. You are one of the strangest pastors I've ever met.
I say that all
This
the
is
time about
wonderful.
myself.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I mean, and you know this, Chris, because it sounds like you've been in the church planting world for a while. But I have had countless encounters with pastors who have an idea that this is what I'm going to do and this is what it's going to look like before they even get to their community.
Right.
And that's thanks to all of these residential programs for church planting training and the whole models of launch large and whatever has been in our past that we're now realizing, some of us at least, that those don't really work like we're hoping that they'll work.
They don't make disciples.
No, they don't.
start services and then they fail because they never made disciples either.
Yeah. So your approach sounds far from the cookie cutter approach that is being replicated, at least attempted, all over the Western world, and that I mean in the United States, Canada, and Europe as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, so we planted 14-ish years ago, and when we planted, I would say like my planting story, the short version of it goes something like this. I was sitting in a gym playing basketball with some guys. I had just moved to the city. This was before we had set out to plant. And I asked the question, what would it take for one of these guys that I was getting to know playing basketball? What would it take for one of them to show up to 4347 Wilkinson Road at 9:11 and 6? That was the address of the church I worked at the time as a youth pastor. And those were the service times.
Mm.
And the only answer I could come up with was either one of them is going to have to get cancer and happen to know a Christian, or the Holy Spirit's going to have to drag him there, which he does do from time to time. Thanks be to God. And I thought to myself in that moment, that's a terrible missional strategy for the church. It's a terrible strategy. And then at the same time, and this was a great church, I'm not throwing shade at my church that I worked at, but at the same time, the conversations we were having as a staff, as a leadership, were like, how do we make the music better? How do we make the preaching more relevant? How do we make, like when we do our video announcements, we probably should have like just instrumental music so people can hear the person giving the announcements. And I just thought to myself, this is like, there's a disconnect here. So when I set out to plant West Village 14 years ago, I wanted to plant a missional church. I wanted to plant, we had all the we had all the angst, I would say, we're not going to ask people to come to us. We're going to go to them. We're not, we don't go to church. We are the church, all that stuff. But again, 14 years ago, this is, 2011, there was not a ton of missional stuff out there. The only missional stuff I could find out there in terms of models were like emergent church models that were really oriented around more social justice and not really gospel centered. And then I had these great gospel centered like giants of the faith, like John Piper and Tim Keller and others who were, just like lighting my heart up with the goodness of Jesus. But then I would look at their churches and they were still pulpit centered ministries, predominantly around like really like dynamic or effective communicators. And so I wanted to plant something different, but here was the problem. I had never seen anything different. I had never even imagined of a different thing. So all we did was the only thing I knew how to do, which was get people in a room, get them excited about something. And then we rented a movie theater and we planted a cooler version of the thing we didn't want to become. Like, honestly, that's what we did. And then probably about 6 months after we launched, I went to a church planting boot camp in Vancouver. Bumped into Jeff Vanderstelt. He was training there, and he was in Tacoma. He had planted Soma just a few years before that, and he was that was the height of his shtick, talking about his neighbor Nicky and Concert Clay. And if you know Jeff, those were like kind of his main stories back in the day. And what I heard when I listened to Jeff was beautiful gospel theology mixed with missional living, which was really like what I heard was like just. I want to say missional ecclesiology, but like to me, that's an oxymoron. I heard the church. This is the church. And I was like, oh, I need to get his phone number. And then, one of our core members at the time, we jumped jumped in a car and went down to our first Soma school. And then honestly, like 6 months into the launch of our church, we started trying to transition it. We were transitioning a church. And now like what we have out there in the West Shore is a church with a, from the outside looking in, it's sort of a prevailing model Sunday expression, preacher, worship, kids ministry, all that stuff. And then we have missional communities, these missional tentacles. I think there's about 10 of them scattered throughout the city doing missional work. And it's what I started to learn as we were transitioning that church that like, I was like, oh, I got to take this further. I got to take this further. I got to take this further. And then, just my personality and kind of gift mix is such that like once West Village was established, I just was like, I want to blow it up and start all over again. And that like led to a church plant. And so I'm in this stage now where I'm like, oh, I have a blank canvas and I'll make all kinds of mistakes. I have no doubt about that. I'll just make different ones. But I want to take the ideas further than I've been able to take them before. And, I could have blown up West Village, but it would have been a very unkind thing for me to do. I had the leadership clout and relational credibility to do that. But I also knew that it wasn't the right thing to do for that church family, that they had been discipled into the way of living that they were living. And it's good. It's fruitful. People are meeting Jesus. Disciples are being made. They're doing a great job. We're doing a great job of, we call it re-churching people. So a new person shows up to West Village and the only thing we do is try and convert them to a disciple making mission. Wow. But what I also learned in that time, and this comes back to some of what you were saying, about, just sort of the ineffectiveness of church planting models was that 99.9%, this is like, I'm kind of making this up, but it's probably not far.
That's a good number to make up.
99.9% of the people that we would meet on a Sunday who were new to our church were not pagans. They were not people seeking the Lord. They were Christians moving to the city, Christians unhappy with their church. Uh-huh. And so I just was like, okay, the real fruit was in the missional community, the real disciple-making fruit, like the awesome stuff, the Muslims engaging with the gospel, the non-believers, the
big Jesus stories.
Yeah, that was all happening in the missional communities. And we were re-churching, discipling people towards that, which was great. But I've seen, when I see a church that's like busting at the seams and growing, I'm like, I'm almost, I don't want to say I'm cynical, but I'm certainly like,
Hmm.
I question
Yeah.
what the big hoopla is.
Yeah. Well, so often, and you said this in essence, so often it's just a demographic shift,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's somebody becoming disillusioned with one church, going to another, and so on, which
Yeah.
is a little disheartening for those of us who are more missionally minded, thinking, and I loved how you talked about this a moment ago, how the church needs to be making that move to people rather than trying to get people into the church.
Yeah.
So then what is it looking like as you're continuing to make that contextual shift from the suburbs to the urban context? And it is actually really fun that we're having you on now in this part of the
Mhm.
process. How are
Yes,
you
because that
starting
means
to
we're going to have you back, Chris.
exactly? Um, where is your mind and your heart firing?
Mhm.
Where are you both excited and like wrecked with sadness for where people need Jesus in your incoming context? Why is Jesus good news for the community you're going to or you're now in?
Yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, right now our rhythms look sort of like this. We are just trying to put ourselves in spaces where we can like connect with people, meet them and hear their stories. Victoria, like West Coast, like lots of rain in the winter. So that's starting to shift, which means we're starting to like today's sunny. So we'll be outside, we'll meet some people, um, learn names, walk our dog, connect with people that way. I hang out at a couple of coffee shops on a regular basis. And right now, like I'm doing all I can to learn baristas names and just remember them. So when I go in, like I'm a known entity, and the people that I see there regularly. We've discovered a community center in our neighborhood that hosts a weekly community dinner. It's not a potluck, like you just show
Hmm.
up, meals prepped, and it's sort of like a church potluck, to be perfectly honest, but without the Jesus stuff. And so you get your meal, and then you are just sitting with people. And we make that it's every Monday. We make that a regular part of our family rhythm. So we go down there, and some of the people who like, there's been people that have moved into this neighborhood to join us. They come with us,
Hmm.
and we just divide. We don't sit together. We just go meet people and just learn their names. And this is what I hear. My wife grabs me under the table because I just want to launch into stuff. Like I want to get things
Hold
going.
on, Chris. Hold on, Chris. Don't go there.
Yeah, I just keep hearing like, ask good questions and listen. Ask good questions and listen.
Oh, you're doing the right thing. You're doing
Yeah.
the right thing. I mean, this is so encouraging. I can't tell you how encouraged I am with hearing what you're doing, because you're, I mean, very much in kind of the ephesiological orbit of what it is that we've been talking about all these years. And it's a lot of fun to hear you applying. I mean, ephesiology is new to you, but you're doing the things that we see happening in the book of Acts.
That's good.
And I love that.
Yeah. So, so one other thing we're doing, like, just as we look at this neighborhood and recognize it's hard soil, like we just have this strong sense, like, it's not just like, so I am very like, my story is such that I'm an achiever. I'm a doer. I'm a get things done kind of person. And we have just come into this season going like, okay, we aren't going to kick doors down. This is something we felt like the Lord gave us. We're not going to kick doors down. That's my proclivity. Just make things happen. And so we've also recognized like there needs to be spiritual breakthrough in this neighborhood. Like there needs to be like a genuine move of God, and that needs to be the foundation of all that we do. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
the only formal thing we've started doing, we have a group of probably about nine adults and some kids with us right now, is we meet every week, and it sort of fluctuates on the day, just sort of based on more or less our availability, to be honest. It's very casual and informal at this phase in what we're doing. But we meet in the square, which again is where that old church building that is now a theater. The square is the center of the town.
Hmm.
And I'd love to tell you the story how we got this house, but we live 50 steps from there. And honestly, the Lord just kind of preserved this house for us. It's kind of crazy how we ended up here, but we feel like the square represents like the center of this town. It's the hub. And it also represents, this neighborhood represents the hub of several neighborhoods around us. And so we just said, like, we want to cry out on behalf of the people, intercede on behalf of the people to God. And so we just meet there in the square. Like we met last night at 7. There was 6 of us there, and we just pray. We pray for the neighbors that we're meeting. We pray for the community. We pray for Jesus to move. There's a lot of abject poverty that kind of finds its way into our neighborhood. There's a lot of addiction that's associated with that. So we pray against, like a good Ephesians 5 prayer, right? Powers and principalities. We listen to the Spirit for, words that he might be giving us in this season, and we pray for each other. And, we're out there for like 45 minutes, but there is something declarative about that. If you can imagine what that might look like, it's like last night, it was dark. It was a little windy here. And the Belfry Theater has shows on right now, which means every night at 7:00, there's people coming and going. The Fernwood Inn has people coming and going from it. There's a little community center that often has activities happening. People are walking their dogs or walking through with their families. And there's this small group of believers who are just like, we're going to huddle up and we're going to pray, and all this is happening around us. And I'd say like, you can feel a little bit of the awkwardness in us even. And I just name it like, hey, I get it. This is uncomfortable, but this is also like a picture of the remnant, the exile, the foreigner in a strange land. And it's also a declarative moment for us as a community. And so we've been pretty committed to that as well, as kind of a foundation for anything that the Lord might do in this neighborhood. Because it is going to be, it is not like add water, mix, and voila, you have a church. It is going to be slow, long, hard discipleship. And so we just know that we need the Lord to move and go before us. And so that's another key part. Back to the question you asked, Andrew, which was like, where's Jesus good news? I would say this, one thing that I have noticed as I have interacted with other believers about the neighborhood that we're in, like if you talk to the average pastor in the city of Victoria or Christian that's been around here for a long time, and you tell them, like, this is what I'll say to people, like, oh, what are you doing now, Chris? Oh, my family moved. We moved. We're planting another church. I said, where'd you move? We'll say, we moved to Fernwood. This is what they will say almost every time, especially if they are in vocational ministry. They'll say, oh, you moved into the belly of the beast. That's what they'll say. Implying that this is like spiritual darkness. This is also, it's known as like the Wiccan witchcraft capital of the world, I think is part of the sort of the stigma or the, like what's going on here. But what I've noticed as I've gotten here, and I don't know how this fully ties into what you were asking, but there's actually a lot of really good things happening here. Like, it's not like this is a totally, like, it is dark. It is spiritually dark. Do not hear me say something I'm not saying. But man, there is such a desire for community. There is such a desire to be together. There is such a desire to care for people, sometimes misappropriated, to be sure, sometimes, turned into a bit of an ideology, to be sure. But I actually see a lot of what I would just call opportunities for convergence, where we can we don't like, because I think sometimes we can look at a neighborhood like the one we're in, and we want to, and I don't know if this brings us comfort, but or if it somehow appeases us, but we want to differentiate ourselves, so like contrast ourselves so starkly from those who we're trying to reach. And then it becomes like almost like we're lobbing grenades into this community, and we're like, we have to bring them from that side to this side instead of meeting them where they're actually at and go, oh, there's actually some really good things here that I can point to and say, no, these are the fingerprints of God. Like, God is at work among you here. You just don't know it. It's almost like a statue to an unknown God in a sense, like Paul in Acts 17. And I'm just like, I wonder if that might actually be a way better missional strategy than
100%.
telling them all the things they think are wrong, and they need to think just like I think, as a starting point, at least.
Yeah, I'm about to jump out of my chair, Chris.
Go for it.
Yes.
Go.
Here. No, I mean, 100%. That's, I mean, I love what you're asking, the questions that you're asking, what you're observing there. We've talked about, we did a series recently on innovative disruption, and a part of that series is identifying where it is that God's at work, believing that if we truly believe he's omnipotent, then he is at work.
Right.
He is at work, and we just need the eyes to see it. And what I hear you saying is that your eyes are opening to seeing God at work. And
Well,
he's going to work in surprising places, even among Wiccans
yeah.
and spiritually dark places.
Well, like here's an example. So one of the things that, entered a thought that entered my mind was like, oh, maybe we, if we were ever to acquire some kind of real estate, like, and I'm not looking for a church building, but if it was like a commercial space or something like that, maybe there would be an opportunity to have like a community dinner. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, there's already a community dinner.
Yeah.
Like, could we not just say, oh, there's already a community dinner. This is actually really good that they have a desire to be together. Like that is part of the image of God,
Yes.
being reflected in these people.
Absolutely.
What if we said, we're actually going to join in what God's already doing here?
Yes.
And bring the better wine and love and serve, and
Right.
live out the kingdom, and like, so I joke and say this Fernwood Community Center is like they want to be a church without Jesus. Like, that's, if you read their mission statement, it's like this is just as good as any church's mission statement, except they don't want Jesus as a part of it. Well, what if we actually brought Jesus to their church? You know what I mean? Like, and we just embedded ourselves in that space for the next 10 years. Like, what would it look like to serve a meal next to like this person that I met last Monday night while I'm getting my meal? Like, what if every week I was showing up and setting up with them and taking down with them and listening to their story and responding and inviting them for coffee that week, or having them in my home for dinner and becoming friends with them, or taking vacations together, and finding out, oh, there's a need, and maybe there's an opportunity to meet the need or to pray for the need or whatever it is, like bring the kingdom to actually bear on the places where the people are, instead of trying to create this alternate lane over here that we're trying to bring everyone into and ask them to totally give up everything they've ever known and join this other alternate universe. And I just think, I don't know that.
Absolutely. The one thing I would add to that is, and I think that it sounds like you're getting there, is, and I encourage this in the church planting courses that I teach, is coming to the point to say, you know what, Jesus is already there. It's not that I'm bringing him there. I mean, it's that kind of language of I'm taking Jesus from somewhere to somewhere else when he's omnipresent. That just, so he's already there. And the challenge is trying to identify how is he manifesting in that space. And you've already said it. I mean, the community is gathering because people are created in God's image and desire community. So how do you make that explicit to people so that they get an aha moment? Oh, that's why I have this desire, because God has created me this way. Or dang, you know what? I'm about to get on an airplane, Chris. Come and see.
He wants to come hang out.
We're recruiting. If I'm never
Be
not
careful.
recruiting.
Be careful.
I am super encouraged by hearing what you're saying, and honestly, you're like the weirdest pastor I know now. I don't
think I am actually. What I tell people
I
here,
hope you're not. I mean, I would love to know more pastors that have a heart like you do and really are acting on these things in a missiological manner. And
I got asked at one of the community dinners. Actually, it's an interesting story. So we just sat next to this older couple. They're not together. They're just friends. But Kim and Stefan, and I just. Not looking for spiritual conversations, just looking to make friends. And they launched right into spiritual conversation. And she said in that conversation, not knowing anything about my wife and I, they didn't ask any questions about us. So they knew nothing, but she just said, I do not use the G word, being God. Like and again, she was talking about consciousness and the universe and all the things. And I'm just listening and, not really interjecting too much. And then further on in the conversation, we got talking about travel, and I've done travel for just different work things. And so I'd been to some of the same places. And so I identified that I'd been to some of those places. He asked why. I said for work. He asked, what do I do? It was the first time I've been asked. And I was like, oh, I don't really have a good answer for this. So this is what I said. So I don't know if this is a good answer, but it's the one that worked.
It's workshop time.
Yeah. So I said, I'm a spiritual entrepreneur. And he said, well, what does that mean? I said, my wife and I are passionate about creating holistic spiritual communities that are oriented around the way and teaching of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And it was either confusing enough or satisfying enough that he kind of moved on from there. And actually the next question he asked was, well, how did you get into that? And so I got to share my testimony with him, like just in short form. I just said, when I was 17, I had an existential spiritual experience. It sent me on a quest for meaning and truth. I found the teachings and the way of life of Jesus, and it was compelling, and I'd never found anything like it. And I saw the way that it created community, the way that it improved the lives of those who encountered it and those around them. And my life's never been the same since. And the conversation carried on into other things, but so I guess that's what I do. That's the point of that story. Was I'm a self-funded spiritual entrepreneur.
That's great. That's a great way to put it.
This is fantastic. I think, Chris, my outside observer, fellow missiologist, I want to encourage you how you all are showing up specifically with like prayer walking. Prayer walking, I've heard it described as praying on site with insight. All the things that you were describing are like, you're able to pray what you're praying because God has put what he has put around you. You're seeing this, right? The Holy Spirit is moving and you're bringing this there. My encouragement to you, don't discontinue this practice 2 years down the road when some of those missional communities start popping and you start seeing some excitement around Jesus there. And I have too long. See, now, again, I'm going to definitely talk about the American context here. Too long, church planters go and they talk about all the ways that they're praying over their communities and the way they're out in public and they're doing the thing. And then once the group starts meeting, those prayer gatherings stop. They quote unquote served their purpose. And all the things that you're talking about of the Holy Spirit moving and rather the desperation for anything to happen, he will have to show up. That will never stop being true. That will never stop being true. And so continue doing that. Continue to model that. Continue to encourage the missional communities to take that up in their new neighborhoods. But anyway, I'm very excited by that and more. Steady on. Like, it is so great.
Thanks.
Okay, Chris, I see Michael is going to be booking his flight to Canada shortly. So he's going to want to get your story in person. For others who have been listening to this podcast and are excited about some of the things that you've talked about, again, we mentioned some of the Soma stuff. How can people connect with you and some of the things that you are about after they listen?
So a little bit of a side hustle of mine is I just have a huge passion for what I would just describe as like the church at large, but specifically the Canadian church. I have a huge desire to see the Canadian church embrace not missional communities, certainly not Soma, just the idea that if you build it, they will come is gone. And
it's dead.
Yeah. And I mean, you know what? I'm not here I'm for all forms of church. I love the Lord and his church, and I love other pastors and church leaders. I love other networks. So I'm not trying to change people's mind into doing something that they don't want to do. But for those who have the angst and the inclinations that I had when, I was planting in 2011, but had never seen and don't know, I just have a huge passion to help those people figure it out. Certainly don't have all the answers, mostly learn from mistakes. As well as the established church leader who is going, this needs to change. And I love to help. I love to talk. I love to come in and train. I love to coach. And so we here in Victoria, so myself personally, but then in partnership with the church I planted, we are sort of helping establish Soma as a region in Canada. And the idea there is not to get churches into the Soma family, but rather to create an environment where people can be exposed to these ideas, see them, experience them, be coached up into them, and live them out in their context. We don't care what denomination you are. We don't care whether you become Soma or not. Like, we just want to serve. And so I've kind of built that into the structure of what we're doing in this iteration of ministry. So part of my time actually goes to doing that. The big thing that we have coming up, if someone's interested, is we have a Soma school, which is a 6-day immersive opportunity where you come here. We kind of cap it at around 25. So it's other church leaders, church planners, established church leaders who are wanting to have this conversation. Someone described it to me who came to Soma School with us last year as theology embodied. So you can find the content we're going to teach. It's out there. It's on the internet. It's in books. It's not hard to find. But what you're going to experience here is living with local missionaries who are doing a lot of the things that we've been talking about for the last hour in their context. You're going to hear their stories. You're going to get to see what it looks like, boots on the ground. And then during the day, you get to sit in learning environments with other people who are somewhere along the same journey that you're on. And you're going to get to chop up these ideas and get to kind of whiteboard them out and talk about them. And then our hope and heart is that you would take those ideas back to your context and want to flesh them out more. And then we don't just leave you on your own. We would love to provide coaching and care and ongoing equipping for you as you live that out. So like right now, we have a number of planters and established church leaders who were at Soma School last year and are now trying to work out these concepts in their local context, and we're training them and coaching them. And so you can if you go to the Soma website, wearesoma.com, and you go under the training tab, and then there's another tab there called Soma School. You can see that, and you can come to Victoria, BC, hang with us. They have other Soma schools that happen around the world as well. But we'd love to have you here, or at least if you're interested. And then you can find me, like my email address is Chris Sinesael. That's hard to spell, but it's Chris, and then Sinesael is SYNESAEL @gmail.com. And then you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. I don't post a whole lot, to be honest, and don't use those a whole lot.
Probably safer.
Yeah, you can probably reach out to me that way as well.
That's great. And the Soma School, that's late May?
Yeah, it's May 31st to June 5th, I believe. June 4th, June 5th.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is great. Well, Chris, I think it's very clear. We are so excited to have you on the podcast today. Can't wait for others to hear this. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course.
And then to the listener, thank you for joining us as well. We're excited that you got to hear some of these things that we have been talking about for a long time and actually saying, hey, look, somebody's doing this, like for real. And we're so excited and we are encouraged. So if you as a listener want to hear more of our back catalog, please go to the Ephesiology Podcast on wherever you listen to podcasts. Go check out that back catalog. We've got podcasts with Jeff Vanderstelt and many others that he mentioned and talked about today. And then if you are saying, what could this look like in my context to actually chase after Jesus in a missiological way, we do have masterclasses.ephesiology.com that we commend to you to see how can we help you through online theological education. So for Michael, for Chris, and myself, thank you for doing theology and community with us today on the Ephesiology Podcast.